Welcome back, everybody. Today is episode 3 of The Killer Within. Today is my second episode of my first fairy podcast, and I can honestly say using Buzzsprout, it's made everything so simple. They upload your podcast to every single major platform there is. And if you use the code in the bottom of the summary of this podcast, you can get a $20 Amazon Visa card when you first sign up with your first paid subscription. So if you're interested in doing some podcasts, look up buzzsprout.com. So today I have a special someone. She's really I started my journey in the film aspect. We went to school together. Her name is Courtney Alford. Say hey, Courtney.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here tonight.
We're so happy to have you. Me and Courtney have been friends for almost 3 years now. We started school together. We done graduated, and now we're going to do some podcasting about some serial killers. What do you think about it, Courtney?
I'm just excited. I mean, to see like where we started in school and just watching your journey too, just from going to film and kind of progressing from there now to podcast and just growing like that type of industry for you is just amazing for me to watch and see and be a part of.
Thank you so much. I know I'm excited to see you're writing a book?
I am, yes, for my business. It's a self-love workbook for like daily affirmations, motivational things, and just fun beauty tips and boudoir stuff for all of my clients and for just women in general. So I'm really excited about that.
And that is why I chose you for today's episode, because I knew you were so like women, like body affirmation and just loving yourself. I knew you were like that for all women. I knew it. So today we are going to talk about the world's first woman serial killer.
I first watched like these series, documentaries about her, Aileen Wuornos. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And I was just mind blown. I love watching like these crime stories on like 60 Minutes and stuff, and just like her whole story was just like mind blowing to me.
What is one thing, like while you were watching all those, what was one thing that just made you, whoa, like how could she do this?
I think it's more of like how she kept playing this role of like, oh, it was self-defense. I could understand seeing the murders, the first one could have been self-defense, but then she did it 7 other times in a 12-month period, and just the no remorse for it was just mind-blowing. It's like, how can somebody murder 7 people and not even think twice about it? Like, it's just another day for her.
If it was anybody else, I think I would agree with you completely. Do I agree in the aspect of, was she aware of what she was doing? Yes. I know she knew what she was doing. But I feel like she had a little bit of mental instability. Like I could see it in her eyes. Yeah.
Sure.
But I feel like with her, I mean, she was raped and had a child at 13 years old. She was very just abused from birth to the day she was executed. And I feel like that first murder where, it was self-defense, like he was raping her. I think when she committed that first murder, maybe she got a little relief from it. Like she got that power, like she was not being the victim anymore. She had power, and I feel like she liked that, and that's where it went loose.
I like that perspective that you give on, how maybe she took some of that power back. Because through all the trauma, I mean, even at a young age, her dad was a child molester and was,
Exactly.
in and out of prison. And she
Mm-hmm.
was raised by her grandfather and other family members, and just all the trauma that she continuously went through, it really affects somebody mentally. And then so I could definitely see that aspect of maybe that first time it happened and she was able to defend herself, that it kind of gave her reasoning in her mind. Because when you don't face those traumas for so long, it can definitely affect your how you perceive the world around you
I
and
agree
what to you
completely.
now
Yeah.
seems right or wrong.
See, you're talking about her dad and his instabilities, I guess you can say. He was also, I read somewhere that he was schizophrenic. So, and I feel like Aileen never was diagnosed with it, but I could see, because there's this movie on Netflix, I believe, and it's called Monster, and it has Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci in it. And Charlize Theron plays Aileen, and I'm just saying this from a movie aspect because we're in film, and if we're going to do kind of like a based on true events, we still, in my head, I would still want my main character at least get the character down where we can have that rawness in the film as well. So this is what I'm basing that off of. When Aileen was in love with what was her name? I can't remember. It was Christina Ricci's character.
Oh, was it her lover at the
Yeah,
time?
what
The
was her
one that actually
name?
turned her into the police?
Yeah, it started with an L.
I'm totally spacing out as well. I know who you're talking about though, because she was the main character witness in all the trials.
Yes, and the side part is in like I read that Eileen's Tyria Moore, that was her lover's name. And Tyria actually came on to Aileen, like she was in a bar, she didn't realize it was a gay bar. So Tyra asked her to come over and talk to her, but Aileen was like, no, I'm not no lesbian. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing no anything with you. And basically, so that what confuses me is why Tyria would do that, because you could tell that they were in love, like from interviews, and Tyria admits it that they were in love. But then again, I could also understand she had nothing to do with this. So I could also understand, hey, I'm not going to jail for something I did not do at all. So I could, I guess, understand that.
I could totally agree with that as well. I mean, she says it in a couple of her statements that, I'm sitting here and telling you all this information. I kept trying to get more information from her because I wanted you guys to know I was not a part of this. So the more
Exactly.
information that I got, that takes it away from me because I wasn't a part of any of this. Because I think she
Exactly.
said the first time she admitted it, she was just sitting at home, and then she comes out and says, "Hey, I got to tell you something. I killed somebody today." And that's kind of like where that situation started.
Yeah, because this is what happened. Tyria was supposed to go back to Ohio, I believe it was, and they fell in love. So Aileen was begging her to, hey, give me a week. Well, Aileen never showed up. So Tyria the next day was like, I'm done. You didn't even show up. And Aileen is breaking down and tells her about Richard Charles Mallory. That was her very first victim. Did you know Mallory was previously convicted for attempted rape?
I didn't. I'm actually surprised to hear that because, like, when I was researching about it, I was obviously more focused on Eileen's story, and a lot of it had a little bit of her in it, but it was more her statements towards the case rather than her backstory. But now it definitely makes a lot more sense already having those previous charges of why she was so concerned about
Yes, and
them thinking that she was involved.
the thing is, what I read was with Richard Mallory, he wanted to actually have sex with her, and she didn't. She was like more, oral. But so he beat the living hell out of her until she passed out. She woke up, bent over the driver's seat, and he was about to start raping her. But she did get away, and when she was rushing and she grabbed her purse to get the gun, and she literally turned around over the seat and shot him. So it was like he was about dragging her out of the car, and she just got out and was shooting at him. So that's why I think her first murder is what broke her. She felt that power. She got away and she was like, I am done with this. Because if you notice, all about a couple of them, they were nasty men. So it was like Dexter in a way. She only went after the bad ones. If the bad ones was like horrible. Like there's this one, her next victim, he was just so grungy, and he was like, I want to be your daddy, call me daddy. And she was just, felt, what's that word called, Courtney, when
Disgusted?
someone, yeah, disgusted. She just felt like he spit in her face. So she did lose it and just shoot him.
Like he degraded her.
That's the word. She felt degraded. And so that's why I feel like her first murder just,
I definitely think that first one is kind of what changed her mentally, along with, her past history. But at the same time, because if you look at how the first one happened in the first place, she was a prostitute. But after that incident had happened, she still chose to continue to go out there and do those type of things.
That's what I'm saying. That's when I said she was aware.
I feel like the instability kind of comes in.
Yes. So did you know that when her and Aileen, Tyria actually got together, she tried to quit prostituting?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
She went on a few interviews and she really did try, and no one would just hire her. And I don't know if you said you watched to 60 minutes. So you might have watched the first one. You know did you hear how she said she hates men, but not all men. I just have different type, like male cops. I hate male cops.
Yes, I saw that interview.
You know why?
When they had went to the jail and they were talking to her, and she was like, I used to not hate men, but now I do, especially those in authority. And I think a lot of that, because she also mentioned lawyers and things like that. It's more, I feel, men in power, because men in power make her feel vulnerable and less of a woman, I feel.
Well, the reason was one of her perpetrators of the year before this happened, a cop locked her up for prostituting, okay, and beat the living hell out of her while she was doing it. Well, she was walking home from an interview. She was not hookering or prostituting anymore. And the cop that sent her to jail pulls up, says, get in the car, and then forces her to give him oral.
I mean, I also do know another, I think, thing that kind of led towards her feelings towards how men in power kind of are is the fact that they made the documentary during this whole trial part, because that's something that she had mentioned, is that even the people in the sheriff's office were trying to profit off of it as well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And the thing is, I feel like she chose the death penalty. Like, she was just done. She had such a miserable life. She was just done. And she wanted the death penalty, but I feel like, honestly, if she really tried, she could get some type of, like, insanity trial, because you could just tell the way she was talking, the way she was interviewing, you can just tell it was a very broken woman who never had a chance from the beginning, in my opinion. Now, am I saying what she did was wrong? I mean, right? No. She did commit murder. If she stopped after the first two, I could be like, girl, I feel bad for you. But for her to do it 7 different times, she literally shot them, took their car, used their car for days and weeks until the next victim. Like, she was aware of what she was doing. And she was bringing all the money back home to her girlfriend. She was aware. But I do feel like she was just one of them people that just did not have a chance from the beginning.
Yeah, definitely her upbringing, I think, plays a big role in it. You know, I took several psychology classes for my first degree because I majored in psychology. And those first 5 years of a person's life impacts, you know, who they tend to be as adults, whether it's subconsciously, if you remember the incidents or not. And from all the trauma that she had as a kid, there's a lot of mental issues and a lot of trauma that's been unresolved in this case. And you know, she could have pleaded, but I think the biggest issue is too is that they were trying to trial each victim separately. And I think for her, they said this trial could have been going on for 10 years by the time that they finished all those cases, and she didn't want to deal with 10 years of what she was dealing with after her whole life of trauma to begin with.
I mean, she also had she had extreme paranoia, even to the point of her execution. Like, and I remember reading in 2002, she began accusing the prison matrons of tainting her food with dirt, saliva, and urine. And she claims to overhear one of the people saying they want to rape her before execution. They were trying to push her over the brink of committing suicide for execution. So she had one of the mentalities that felt like everyone was against her. But when you're messed with from birth to now, what do you expect? I mean, think about it. Like, everyone was painting her as a lesbian killer, as a hooker killer. But here she is screaming so many times that she's been raped, she's been hurt. Wouldn't that start bringing up, hey, she needs some psychiatric help. Like, this woman is hurt. But then again,
I also think it kind of brings into today's modern society as well, where, you know, women are afraid to come and speak out or seek help because then they're a victim, or they're lying, or, you know, it didn't happen and they're exaggerating. And I think, you know, when somebody deals with so much trauma at that point in her life, she's like, well, this is just how the world is, you know, like, she doesn't know anything better. She doesn't see the good things that could happen in life. And it makes her not want to reach for that help, especially towards, you know, she doesn't want to go to a male doctor. She doesn't want to go to a male therapist, because back then, in that time and age, there weren't as many female doctors around.
yeah.
And that definitely plays that role, I think, in her getting mental help. Same with the schizophrenic that you mentioned earlier. You know, women actually don't get diagnosed with schizophrenia until their late 20s, early 30s.
I did read that, yeah.
And so she might not have been aware, neither of anybody in her family at that point.
It breaks.
I just feel like the whole situation for this case, there's a lot of, like, underlining reasonings that could be understandable at the same time, but there's still I feel no excuse for what she did, because if she was mentally capable of making these other decisions,
exactly,
and having, you know,
but that makes me feel like there's a part of dissociation personality or schizophrenia with her, because how can she go from gruesome, like the last 5, like just so pow, pow, pow. Like, she's shot them many, many, many times. It was a hate murder with no
She just
questions
became numb
asked.
at that point where it's like she didn't even care about it anymore.
I agree with you.
And like
I
no
agree with
remorse
that.
for anything that she was doing at that point. Like the first couple were probably that self-defense and that security thing, and at that point she just became numb to the whole situation.
I agree with you. There's no excuse for what she did. It's just, I feel like I said, with all her trauma and stuff, I don't think they should have granted her the death penalty. I don't
Well, there
like.
was actually a lot of hate towards that prosecutor, or I think it was the defendant or
Yeah, he was
the
a
person who
singer.
was
He was
pushing
just
for it. I
gave
forgot what they're
me
called.
a public
Because
defender.
yeah, public defender, yes, because they had asked him, "Do you think she was in that right state of mind to make that decision for the death penalty?" And he said, "Yes, she was."
But listen
And
to
obviously, you
this.
can see her interviews and how all the time she'd go back and forth with all her cases of, "Oh, yes, I'm going to plead this. Oh, no, I'm going to plead this." You could tell just the way that she talks and how she
Hmm.
responds and thinks that everyone's out to get her and that they're have hidden cameras watching her and listening to her. It's obvious that there are mental issues going on there.
Exactly. And 4 days before her trial, like before her sentence to death, the psychiatrist for the defense testified that she had borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. So can you tell me, how was she conscious enough to make that decision?
Well, I mean, I actually have borderline
But
personality
you're not
disorder.
in prison from
Yeah.
murdering people. So imagine her anxiety, her depression, her, you know, that, you know how when we get really bad, just imagine having that intense butterflies every day, all day.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying is, I have borderline personality disorder. I actually get help for it and I'm on
Yeah.
meds and stuff, which she wasn't. But there, even with that help, there are times where depression kicks in and anxiety kicks in to where like you just can't control it anymore and you feel like you're going crazy. And she might have been going through that deep depression episode during that whole year that she was doing these things. And they definitely needed to consider, the psychiatrist's evaluation of the whole situation a lot more in this trial.
I agree. Because back then, like you said, women didn't really weren't seen as the same as men. So I feel like, and she was the first woman in 100 years to be sentenced to death in the state of Florida.
I know, and she wasn't even just the first woman, she was also the first lesbian woman, is what they had said. Which just makes it even more, I think, of a media gossip, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was more of a for show trial at that point where it just got all the attention from the media and society of what was going on. Um, and I think I definitely feel like there was that story playing thing kind of going on where it's like they showed what they wanted to show to everybody,
Do you
if
think?
that makes sense.
Yes, I agree with you. Do you think if Aileen, because she was adopted by this born again Christian family, do you think if Aileen got help mentally when she was adopted, she would have had a better chance? Or do you think from the abuse, the sexual abuse, the mental abuse, the physical abuse, the rape, the all that, she was just, how when trauma gets to a certain point, they just, your mind just shuts off. Like there's no coming back. Your body, your mind is protecting itself. So do you
And
think she was too far gone, or do you think she had a chance?
I mean, I definitely think that we'll never know the answer to that question, but I'm an advocate for mental awareness and people getting help for their issues
Same.
and not being ashamed to get help for it. But at the same time, somebody has to want the help and they have to acknowledge it, because there's a lot of people where it's like they know that they have issues going on and that, maybe what they're thinking or feeling isn't normal, but then they
Mm-hmm.
still try to ignore it and treat it on their own in their own ways. And I kind of feel like that's what she did. She didn't want to get the professional help that she was needing, and that's why she started murdering to kind of use that as the relief to numb what she was going through. Her family, was very supportive, it seemed,
Uh-huh.
and probably tried to get her help, but at the same time, she was a grown woman at that point. You can't force somebody into getting help if they don't want
Okay,
it.
yes, like let that mean known. When she said her family, she was talking about her born again Christian family. Not
Yeah,
her,
yeah,
yes.
not
Her
her, not
grandmother
her.
was abusive, her dad was abusive. So, my
Yeah, no,
next,
no. I was definitely referring to like the ones that ended up adopting her because I think they adopted her when she was 17.
so right now I'm gonna read some of the murders that she did because I want to show you, Courtney, that I feel like what hurt her the most is just how is her hatred towards men because her first murder, Mallory, was he was the age 51 and it was in November of 1989. Aileen claimed she was sodomized and brutally beaten after being driven to an abandoned area for sexual request. 2 days later, a Volsa County Department sheriff found Mallory's abandoned vehicle on December 13th. His body was found several miles away in a wooded area. He had been shot several times and 2 bullets to the left lung were declared the cause of death. That was just one. The second one was Spears, age David Andrew Spears, and he was 47. The date is unknown on this one. But he went declared missing in 1990, and his naked body was found along Route 19 in Florida. He had been shot 6 times by a .22 pistol. Her third one was Charles Edmund Carksadadin. He was age 40, and he had been shot 9 times with a .22 caliber. The body had been wrapped in an electric blanket and was badly decomposing when found. Peter Abraham Symes, he was 65. His car was found in Orange Springs, Florida. Moore and Wuornos, Aileen and her girlfriend, was seen abandoning the car. So, yeah, they wrecked in someone's yard. His body was actually never found. So, the fifth one was an age 50. He was reported in 1990 as well, missing. And he had been shot twice. Now, Charles Richard Dick Humphrey, he was 56, and he was actually a retired U.S. Air Force major. This was when Aileen went straight from her, why am I blanking out from her? You know how serial killers have a type? What's that word?
I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to sit here and think of like all the NCIS
Straight
shows
from
and
her,
all Law and Order shows I've watched.
from her normal
What is that word?
range of murdering. This one was when she was about to get caught and she just needed another vehicle. So she went after this chief of police. His body was found in Marion County, Florida. He was fully clothed and had been shot 6 times in the head and torso. So you can see the difference from the other 4, how she had no remorse at all. So you can tell this one was, I'm so sorry. I had to do this. I had no choice. So
Like the profile.
yeah,
It
the
didn't fit her
profile.
normal
That's
profile.
what it was. She drifted away from her profile. So the last one was a typical profile. He has been shot 4 times. 5 days later, his car was found in Brevard County, Florida. So that's what makes me feel like when she had the trial, everyone was just sees her as this ruthless, nasty, disgusting killer. And because you could see that there was no remorse in these killings.
I think definitely over time, because when they talk about serial killers, they're not born serial killers, and a lot of it has to do with things in past traumas. If you look at a lot of different cases, you'll see that a lot of these so-called serial killers have all been through some type of trauma growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her case for sure. And I think if you looked at the similarities, they were all older men, a lot older than she was.
And they were
That authority
all
figure again.
people who were trying to purchase her business. So it was basically all like sexualized men, the egotistical, degrading. Because the men already looked at her as a hooker. So imagine just how raunchy and degrading they were, Courtney.
Yeah, it's definitely a case where it's like there's more to it than just like what you see on the surface of it,
Yeah, I don't think it's
where
one
it's
of
like people
them.
just look at her as a murderer.
I don't think it's one of them serial killers like Ted Bundy, who was just a sociopath. He was born to kill, pretty much.
I don't think
Well,
she originally like got off
exactly.
on
I
like
think it
just
was one
the
of
fun of
them.
murdering people. Like it
Yeah.
was, it wasn't something that she just enjoyed doing. I definitely think, it progressed to a certain level where she might have gotten some type of a relief from it, but it's a completely different type of a case than with like the Ted Bundy one.
And when you say release, you're meaning how she felt like she could breathe again. Hey, I have control.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Where it's like she's in
She
control
felt
of the situation,
euphoric.
they're not
She got
controlling her.
high from the I'm in control. You can't hurt me no more. I took the power back. See, exactly. So I feel like it was her cases was she had a mental breakdown and she was just done with everything. She wasn't like Ted Bundy where he was like you said, he got off on it. He got off on it. So, and that's why they called her the most gruesome case they have ever seen, even though she said her words were, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you watched one of the same videos I did, was, I don't understand how it's so like gruesome. As like I just did was I shot them, like I literally shot them, stole their car and walked off. How is that gruesome? So
We watched the same part in the same documentary.
so it was gruesome. It's not just the fact that she was shooting people, it's the scenario, is how you left their body. You even went to the extent of wrapping one of your victims in an electric blanket.
Well, I think that's where like the mental health comes in, where it just got to the point for her where it was normal.
Mm-hmm.
It just became something that was, oh, well,
She became numb,
it was
like you
another
said.
victim, like they deserved it type of a thing. But that's her mental illnesses that she was struggling with telling her that, because at that point in her life, she had already murdered so many people that for her, it was normal.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Aileen died at 9:47 a.m. on October 9th, 2002. And her last words was, "Yes, I would like to say I'm selling with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus." Okay. Well, I'm glad, she found her inner peace. She finally had some sense of peace before she went. Because I don't think she was all. I don't think I don't mean to sound like I was for her. I just don't think she was a ruthless, psychopathic, narcissistic killer.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, like I said, there's definitely more to the story
Did
than
she
what's
deserve
being
to be
told,
locked up?
more than
Yes.
what's on the surface.
Was she dangerous to society? Yes. But I don't think she was a ruthless sociopath. I don't.
I think she was just hurt and had a lot of trauma and was untreated and didn't get the help that she needed to get. that doesn't mean that.
But I guess the question is, like, I mean, how do I say this? Do you think some people are born sociopathic killers and some people are turned into killers?
I don't think we're born that way, you know.
So
we can be born with mental illnesses, and it's whether or not, you know, we get the help and stuff that we need for it. But I think a lot of it is we're turned into it based on the events that have happened in our life, because that's how our brain works. It only processes and reacts to situations that it's personally experienced. You know, that's why sometimes it's hard when you're trying to help somebody out, but you haven't gone through the same experience, because unless you physically have gone through it, you can't know what they're going through. Like you can sympathize and try to understand, but you can't physically know unless you've experienced it yourself. So yeah, I think we're made.
That's also what FBI profiler Robert K. Ressler said. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. And he said he often does not discuss female serial killers because they tend to kill in spree instead of sequential fashion. He noted Wuornos as the sole exception. Ressler, who allegedly coined the phrase serial killer to describe murderers seeking personal gratification, does not apply it to women killing and postpartum psychosis. So meaning by this is she was killing for, like, we were right, I guess. When she killed these men, she felt a sense of power. She was getting their money, getting their car, and showing them who's, I guess, alpha in the way. So she was killing for gratification. It did make her feel good. Now, I want to close this with, Courtney, we know we both are film people, so I just want to tell everybody about this film called Monster. It is based on the Aileen Wuornos story. It does have Charlize Theron, and she won an Academy Award for Best Actress in this. Also, on March 16, 2021, it was announced that Voltage Pictures acquired the worldwide rights to Aileen Wuornos' American Boogeyman. So there is going to be another one. They just released a Ted Bundy American Boogeyman. But there's also a TV series called Overkill, the Aileen Wuornos story. So everyone take a look about that. And Courtney, I want to thank you so much for joining us. You are a great pleasure, and I enjoyed every second of this.
Oh, thank you so much. I was so happy to be here. And it was actually really fun. I was a little bit nervous at first, but, I've never done a podcast before. But no, I really enjoyed it, and just being here with you and talking about this case.
Yes, me and you have a tendency of being able to hold conversation for hours at a time.
For sure.
Thank you guys, and everyone have a wonderful night.